In this video, I'm going to be showing you an AFKable way to help you jump over that 92 hump with necromancy and even 99 to 120 like I did by fighting Armoured Phantoms. So if that's something that's interesting and you are intrigued, make sure you stay tuned. Let's dive in. As for the requirements, they're going to be a little steep. You're going to need to finish the Unwelcome Guest quest, or you will not be able to get into the crypt that does have the Armoured Phantoms. After that, you will need a baby or an adult platypus. And this platypus is going to be the most crucial part of this setup. Now, to catch a platypus, you will need lavender and box traps inside of your inventory. You're going to teleport to Ook Glook and run southwest to the beach area. Now, if you don't like using the GE or if you are an Iron Man account, lavender are located right on the edge of the beach that you need to go for the platypus. Now, I would highly recommend grabbing a bunch of lavender for this method to catch a platypus because it does take a little bit of time to get one platypus in a box trap. Unless you see this method on screen and I'm doing it wrong, please let me know down in the comments. But for me, it took me a solid 10-15 minutes to be able to catch one baby platypus. Now, what I did for this method, I just set up a bunch of box traps in line and then I just lit up a lavender stick and I just ran back and forth in hopes that a baby platypus would be caught, and eventually I did catch one. But other than that, you will need 90 plus combat skills, all included with the defense, necromancy, constitution. You will also need 98 herblore for your holy aggro overloads, and you will need curses unlocked. You will also need 113 Slayer in order to be able to do any kind of damage to the Armoured Phantoms. Now, the only thing I do recommend is having a 112 Invention so you can make potion reservoirs, because that does make this completely AFKable. Now, you can make 7 million GP per hour by doing this method, but the main thing we're going to be talking about is the 1.7 million XP per hour you can make with necromancy by just AFKing Armoured Phantoms. So to put that into perspective, you can make up to 2.1 million XP per hour by doing rituals, but it is not AFKable since you have to run around and deal with all of the disturbances. This method, you can literally sit in a corner and attack Armoured Phantoms. As for the gear, we will be using the tier 90 Death Dealer set since it does have a small chance to add an Invoke Death on your Armoured Phantoms, which will help you kill them a lot quicker. As for the aura, we will be using the Vampirism aura, but I did catch while fighting the Armoured Phantoms that my aura did run out, but I was still surviving without an aura. Now, I would recommend having at least the Vampirism aura so you can get up and feel more comfortable staying alive while fighting them, so you can go do some house chores or you can walk the dogs or however you want to use your AFK method. As for the cape, I am bringing the Zuck cape because more necromancy stats equals more damage equals more Armoured Phantoms killed per hour. Now, you can bring a max cape that does do well for this because we're not going to be using the death skulls in our revo bar anyways, so a max cape could work for you guys. As for the necklace, we are using the blood amulet of fury. As for the ring, reaver's ring, if you guys have anything that could do a little bit more damage like the occultist ring or anything, but this is going to be the minimum that you're going to want. As for the ammo slot, we will have our Nexus to hold all of our Ectoplasm and all of the Necromancy ruins, even though we're only going to be using the Ectoplasm. As for the weapons, it is the tier 90 weapons. As for the Scripture of When God book. I would like to also note that all of this gear setup does not have any type of perks on them. They're not even augmented, and you will see me pointing it out during the video while killing the Armoured Phantoms. So this setup is perfect for anybody who doesn't have a high invention or doesn't even have invention unlocked and you just decided to do combat the entire way. There is no perk setup, and there is actually no relic setup with this either. So for the inventory, we will need the potion reservoirs, just so you can have your holy aggro overloads inside of them, so you can make this a full-on AFK and you don't have to come back and check every 5 minutes to renew your overload. Now, I do have two things of full restore flasks in here just in case your prayer does go a little bit lower, and some emergency food. Here I have some shellfish, but shark can do whatever cheap option for you guys will do. I also have the spring cleaner. They do drop some decent amount of alkables, especially rune salvages. I do have the artificer's measure. You guys can bring a gem bag, but I would highly suggest that it be in an upgraded gem bag because they do drop a bunch of dragon stones. Now, I did bring a bunch of magic notepaper in case I got lucky with the rare drop of the Greater Sonic Wave Ability Codex, but everything is stackable other than the herbs. You can bring the Charming Imp so you can gain some summoning experience over the time, so you can just let it eat all of the charms that they do drop. Now, it wouldn't be an Afkable method if we didn't have Powder of Penance, and if you guys don't know what Powder of Penance does, is every time you get hit while you sprinkled Powder of Penance down, you regain prayer to the hit points that you take. Now, if you don't have Powder of Penance or you don't feel like spending as much for something like this, then you can just use the Penance Aura if you have it unlocked. And to have an Enhanced Excalibur unlocked is super helpful. After that, you have the Ancient Elven Ritual Shard, so if you're not using the Powder of Penance, that does come super helpful. Now, I also like to use the herbicide so I can gain some Afkable Herbler experience for all of the grimy herbs that they do drop. Again, you can also bring the seedicide since they do drop a decent amount of seeds, so you can also gain some Afkable farming experience. As for the Revolution bar, we are going to be using Conjure Army, Soul Strike, Soul Sap, Scythe, and Blood Siphon. For the Conjure Army, we will be using all 4 Conjures for that method. Now, the way we're going to have all of the Armored Phantoms bunched up, Soul Strike is going to be perfect for the AoE damage and the stun that it does deal to them. And the Scythe is going to use all of our adrenaline throughout this whole case. That is why we are not putting the Death Skulls inside of the Revo bar. And as for the Blood Siphon, it is for you to gain as much health back as possible, but you're hardly ever going to see Blood Siphon being used because you have Scythe up in front of it. Now, how to get to the Armored Phantoms, all you have to do is go to Fort 413, run through the north gate, and click on the Wilderness Crypt entrance. Now, if you're lower level, you don't have to worry about the zombies or the skeleton on the outside of them since they are lower level and they don't hit as much. Now, once you make it inside of the crypt, this is where I highly suggest activating all of your stuff. Your aura, your god book, I would activate your aggro overloads, and I would make sure that your Powder of Penance is spread across. Now, before you run through, I highly suggest putting up your deflect magic while running through the ghosts since they do hit a lot. Now, I also recommend if you have devotion, to devotion while running through all of this so you don't take as much damage as possible. Now, once you made it on the Armored Phantom side, swap over to Deflect Melee. Now, watch how I move around on the map. Now, once I'm getting to this spot exactly, this is when I call my Platypus for him to be right beside me. Now, this is a super crucial part because with the Platypus being beside you, it counts as an item in that block, which means the Armored Phantoms cannot come beside you to attack you, and they are stuck to fight right in front. Now, this is where I highly recommend just swapping the Soul Split, but not using your tier 95 prayer at all. So you can hold as much prayer as possible so you don't have to worry about running out later in the hour. And I also highly recommend not using your Darkness Incantation here because you want the Armored Phantoms to hit you since you are using the Powder of Penance. Now, since we have the Platypus on one side and we have a Rock Pile on the other, we will be 1v1 every single Armored Phantom, and that is why the AoE abilities are super crucial at this point. So with us having Soul Strike up at the beginning of the Revo bar, that's helpful because it hits every single Armored Phantom and it also gives out a stun so you don't take as much damage over time, but it also gives the initial hit on all the other Armored Phantoms so when they come up 1v1 you, they already have some of their health missed. That's also simply said with the Scythe. With the Scythe being used, you can hit every single one of them and deal amounts of damage to them. So before they come up to you, there's even a chance that you do kill them beforehand. Along with the God Book being used, that's just every once in a while. So you can't really depend on the God Book being used. At the end of the Revo bar, we do have the Blood Siphon, and that is just simply, if you do use the Blood Siphon with the Revo bar, it's just super helpful because you gain so much health back because it does reach every single Armored Phantom that is bunched up in front of you. Now, using this gear setup, this Revo bar setup, and this method all together, you can expect about 645 kills per hour, which equates to about 1.7 million XP per hour for necromancy. And if you're using wild cards for Slayer, you can expect about 1.4 million XP per hour for Slayer. That's if you are using wild cards, because if you're not using wild cards, that means you have to run back to the Raptor and be able to get a new task. It's just not the same, and you will not experience the 1.4 million XP per hour. This is the exact same method that I used to get myself from level 90 all the way to 120 and even almost to 150 million XP with necromancy. But if you have another method that can compete with this exact AFKable side of things, please let me know down in the comments. But that does come an end to this video. If you guys found anything useful or interesting, please make sure to drop that like. If you guys are brand new to the channel and you like to see XP gains or any kind of money making methods or novice PVMing, make sure to hit that sub button, hit the bell icon so you guys know when I upload next. But until next time, guys, I hope you stay safe. See ya.